combines psychology with the content creation in a very unique way. Okay.
Yeah.
So what would be the most eye-opening realization or thought about engaging people to your content, or just a realization about the mental health or mental wellness community online?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think one of the things that's been great over the last couple of years, I think definitely since 2020 and the pandemic and everything like that, I think there's been definitely a shift in the conversations about mental health. I think more people are talking about mental health. I feel like more people on social media are talking about mental health, athletes, celebrities, and so just average day people. And so I think that shift to talking more about mental health is really important and it's really good. And I think it's starting the conversations about what people are going through and what they're experiencing. And so I think for me, going into that space, when I got into graduate school, I didn't have a lot of help in terms of trying to figure out applications for clinical psychology. And so once I got into graduate school, I wanted to become a mentor for other people to actually help them also get into graduate school. And so it's been great the last couple of years just talking about mental health. And so I feel like in the online community, people are interested in mental health. But now what's really interesting is that I feel like there's a lot of misinformation that's going.
Yeah,
It's like it's nice that people are talking about their experiences, but at the same time, now what I see is a lot of misinformation. And so when people go online, there's a lot of confusing information about mental health. And so I think it's been really important for me to help people get into graduate school, but now also really important for me to help people make sure that they're not falling astray with the misinformation that's out there about mental health as well.
and that's really one thing. I was just gonna. This was my follow-up question about the misinformation itself. So you answered it. Okay. So at Safe Minds, we believe that mental health is not just about therapy itself. It's about nature, community, creativity. So what are your thoughts about this unconventional paths, would you say? And how would this personally charge or find clarity in?
Sorry, specifically with
So
what?
people say, I am saying that, yeah, at Safe Minds, it's mental health is not just about therapy.
Yeah.
It's more about the connection with the nature, creativity, and stuff like that. And some might say it's a very unconventional path.
Yeah.
Okay. So personally, what do you think about this, and how would you, yeah, what are your thoughts on this, basically?
Yeah. Yeah, I truly think that it's interesting, like even in the Western part, we've pretty much divided a lot of different health aspects. There's like your physical health, there's your mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, financial health, keep going, right? Social health. And it's hard to divide your life in all of these categories and put them all in these boxes because as a person, that's not who we are. We are one body, one mind, one soul, one spirit. And so I think the unfortunate thing about mental health is that people only consider it to be your emotional, your mental, but everything impacts your mental health. Your physical health impacts your mental health. How much you exercise, what you eat, how good of sleep you get, your social connections, your family connections, your religion, your spirituality, your identity in yourself. There's so many different things that kind of overlap. And so I think in terms of talking about mental health, it's good to talk about it, but I also like talking about it holistically as a person. When I see patients, I ask them how their sleep is. I ask them how often they're moving and they're exercising, because all of that gives me information about their mental health, right? So all of those things definitely intersect together. And I think it's actually easier to talk about mental health from the there's the biopsychosocial model, which is the bio is like your physiology and your genetics. The psycho is more of the emotional and the social is more of your environment. But I think I like to think of it as you are one person with experiences that you've had from your childhood all the way now to the present. And let's take those experiences holistically. Like we can talk about all of the divisions, but I think the important thing is understanding that you as a person are wanting to be healthy from a collective. And so I truly believe in helping people with their mental health, but even helping people spiritually, helping people financially, helping people in other realms of their life they want to be healthy in. I think health should not be put into a box. It should just be, this is who I am, right? And this is the person that I'm trying to be. So.
That was a great answer. Okay, like how much would you say a person's mental health, not just a person, a community's mental health will affect the world economically or politically? Like, does it has a great effect or just a a very niche effect? Like, if a community's mindset is similar to each other, can it actually affect the states or the community's political and economical relations?
Mhm. Right. Yeah. If we're talking about the community, like if a whole community is healthy, that's a game changer. That's a game changer. I grew up in Ghana, and I grew up with the belief that it takes a village, right, to raise a child. And so I grew up living with my aunties, my uncles, my grandma, my grandpa, like extended family members. Grew up in just a big family. And there was this idea that even people who were not related to me were still my uncles and my aunties. And so even if I was away from my family, if they saw me doing something wrong, they could discipline me, right? They could help me in my character. They could help me in my development. And I think it's unfortunate. I think nowadays, even in collectivist societies, we've lost this essence of community where you have these whole groups of people in towns or local communities helping one another, helping each other with food, with social services. And it's unfortunate because sometimes, you want, for example, the government to step in and try and help in those categories, and that's okay. But there's nothing like local community, the village helping one another to take care of each other. And when a local community has good mental health, that has like ripple effects, I think, throughout the city, throughout the landscape. I mean, how different would the world look like if one village, one town had a like synchrony of love and community and support and generosity? Like it just would be it could radically change, I think, the world. And so it's unfortunate that obviously this is easier said than done, but it doesn't mean that we should not try and cultivate some of these things in our own social atmospheres.
I totally agree. So, let's say you talk a lot about topics that are often brushed under the rug. Okay, not much talked about. Trauma responses, anxious attachment, self worth. So, like, have you ever faced backlash or any resistance? And how do you keep your voice grounded?
Within therapy sessions specifically?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure,
Or just in general? Yeah.
both you can say.
Yeah. I think this is where I believe that people will mirror each other. There's this concept of mirror neurons, right? So these neurons and I think behind the prefrontal cortex of your brain, and they are associated with like seeing human behavior and like mirroring back what that behavior looks like. And it's a way for us to be able to relate to one another and empathize with each other. So when someone smiles, it's just naturally easier for the other person to smile. Someone's nodding their head. We tend to mirror each other's body language. And I think in the therapy settings, or even outside of the therapy settings, when someone's going through a traumatic response, so this could be the flight, freeze, or flight, flee, or freeze response, right? The sympathetic system where your heart is racing. Maybe you want to fight with that person. Maybe you want to run away and avoid. Maybe you're frozen and you feel like you can't really move, and that's still a sympathetic response. And usually trauma has a lot to do with that. One of the best things to do is to mirror a sense of peace, tranquility, empathy, especially in those moments where someone's having a traumatic reaction. Because what you're doing is that you're mirroring to them that even in a state of arousal, even in a state of chaos, even in a state of a lack of peace or tranquility, that they have something to ground themselves with, right? Like even if I'm in a state of arousal, but I see my therapist calm, cool, collected, that helps me mirror to them like, okay, that's what I'm trying to get to. And so when you have people in your life, whether therapists or friends or family members, who can mirror to you what it looks like healthy coping, I think that's really, really powerful. And so that's something I've always tried to have the mind frame, that when I sit with clients who are going through a lot of really difficult things, being able to be there with them, be present with them, and listen to them, and allow them to go through that period of chaos, but still meet them where they are to help ground themselves back, I think is really powerful. And that's the gift of therapy. That's the gift of a therapist, right? Like that's what we have to offer people, because usually those people, when they go outside and they're going through traumatic reactions, what tends to happen? People that they see, that they interact with, will match them with that same intensity, right? And that's where you get fighting. That's where you get brawls. That's where you get people not being in sync with each other, because a lot of people aren't understanding how to emotionally regulate themselves. And so for a person who understands how to emotionally regulate themselves, it's important for you, but it's also important for the people that you interact with who maybe have not figured out that tool yet.
That's why therapists go such rigorous trainings and stuff. Exactly. So, as you have been a psych student, I am also a psychology student, and I'm still in school. Okay, and to be honest, what is your opinion on psychology institutions in general? Not like in India, it's a mess. It's a very big mess. Like even in the US, is it the same? Is it really confusing for people? Very feels very a very unstable path. Sometimes for young adults, psychology feels like a very unstable path. So, what do you think? Why is it such a mess, and what we can do to help it, make it better?
The specifically the school institutions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
specifically because I guess that's the major problem. I'm sorry, I'm still a student. I may sound dumb sometimes.
No, yeah, I mean, it's been a few years since I was in school, but I 100% agree. I think, it's interesting when the schools and the institutions themselves are chaotic and aren't stable, what type of therapist as a society are we then producing out into the world, right? Because a student that goes through a doctoral program, master's program, where there's instability, there's chaos, there's not a lot of organization, there's emotional burnout, there's compassion fatigue. Now they are stepping into a field where they are starting off burnt out, and they haven't even started yet. And what's even more dangerous is that when they start out, they have either student loans, they're stressed, they're sleep deprived, and now the hospital or the medical place that they see patients in gives them 40, 50 clients a week, and now they're overburdened by that. They're already starting from a place of emotional exhaustion, and now they get even more emotionally exhausted because they want to work a lot of hours in order to pay off the student loan debt, in order to take care of their family. They've been in school for 4, 5, 6 years, and so they don't have a lot of money, and so the only way to make money is to see a lot of patients or a lot of clients. And now you have a system where a lot of therapists get burnt out over 2-3 years of starting their practice. And actually see that a lot. I see a lot of therapists quitting therapy after 5-10 years. And so that goes back to your question of the institution. It's not a problem with them. It's a problem with the institution. The institution needs systemic change to actually help people from the beginning. Self-care should be taught all the way through. I talked about mirroring. Professors should be able to mirror to their students what self-care looks like, what taking care of themselves looks like, what work-life balance looks like. they should be able to mirror to themselves. The professors and the faculty themselves should be balanced so that they can also mirror to the students what it looks like to be balanced as a professional. And unfortunately, that's just not the case. But I think I would start there with the professors. I would also remove a lot of unnecessary classes that we just don't need. And so I would make, if I could change things, I would make the doctoral program shorter. I would make students get paid, even in their doctoral program. I would have the professors mirror to them what it actually looks like to be balanced. And then I would have the early pay of a therapist or a clinician much higher. And I would also reduce the caseload for those therapists, especially starting out. It's probably not going to happen, but if we're talking about institutional change,
Provision, yeah.
those are some of the things that need to happen.
Okay, one question I have of my own. You said about students mirroring the professionals, right? Of self-care and stuff like that. But it's really commonly seen nowadays, especially where, let's talk about 12, 15-year-olds. They don't want to mirror their professors. They don't want to. They are like, if you give us respect, only then we will look at you. It's kind of that. They don't want to mirror anybody else. Even though we are becoming an individual, to be honest, I feel like that the society in itself, collectively, are becoming one identity itself. The individualism, the originality is dying. Yet, people are refusing to respect others. They're just so involved in themselves. So, what would you say? My straight out question is, when you say students mirroring professors into self care, but nowadays children are refusing that. That if we get respect, then only we will listen to what you say. How will you actually fight that with the young adults?
Yes, yeah. So this is where peer influence becomes crucial, because there's a point in time, even in terms of human development, where typically early stages of your life, your parents are the thing that are the most influential in terms of your character, your personality, your temperament. But then it switches to where you get into that prepubescent stage, 12, 13 years old, you go off to maybe secondary school, middle school, high school and things like that. And now your friend and your peer influence is so much more important than whatever any adult says, right? Whatever your parent says. And so this is where we've seen a lot of unfortunate things happen with social media, where some of the toxicity of social media, people can go into Instagram, go into TikTok, they can find these communities that are very negative, very toxic. You already have a lot of social media aspects that are not good for our mental health. Kids are spending way too much time on social media, not enough time engaging with real human adults in the real world. And so now you have a situation where I think when it comes to that question of like, what do? I think you have to form healthy, peer, relational online communities that can counter some of these toxic communities. You're probably not going to change the fact that kids are not going to listen to their parents for a period of time in their life. You're not going to change the fact that kids are not going to spend time online. So yeah, we're not going to change the fact that kids are going to always have some involvement with social media or online communities. So I think the best thing that we can do is start early. And I think this is what's great about like even what you're doing, right? Like you're having conversations with people about mental health. And so what if we created more online communities about mental health that were healthy, to kind of counter some of these other toxic communities? And I think the hope and the goal is that when peers are able to see other peers have either healthy, stable relationships with themselves or with other people, then that can instill within themselves a sense of confidence, a sense of stability, and a sense of hope that they're going to go into the right path as adults. So, yeah.
great, Phil. It was really great talking to you. As I said, it was just going to be a very short conversation. I am really grateful you said yes to this. As I have been watching your content for almost like 7, 8 months. And trust me when I say this, I love it. Like, you inspired me to pursue psychology, to be honest. So, like, yeah.
Thank you so much. That means a lot, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this time, and so yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me, and yeah, I hope your listeners can benefit from this.